For Paddock, that's Joe Smith. This is a bit of breaking news. News just out that Antony will be returning to training with Manchester United. The club have just issued a statement literally 10 minutes ago. So I'm going to read through that, get your reaction to it, and everyone else get involved in the comments and the chat and let us know your thoughts on it. Obviously, Antony had been put on this leave of absence whilst these allegations against him were being investigated. Now, the club have released a statement. I'll go through that and then we can, like I say, we can go over it. It says, Manchester United have issued the following statement on Antony. Since allegations were first made in June, Antony has cooperated with police inquiries in both Brazil and the UK, and he continues to do so. As Antony's employer, Manchester United has decided that he will resume training at Carrington and be available for selection while police inquiries proceed. This will be kept under review pending further developments in the case. As a club, we condemn acts of violence and abuse. We recognise the importance of safeguarding all those involved in the situation and acknowledge the impact these allegations have on survivors of abuse. So, he's going to be returning to training. Joe, are you a bit surprised at that? What do you make of that? For me, personally, I am a little bit surprised because I didn't see it coming. I thought this might rumble on a little bit. Yeah. But obviously the club, for whatever reason, have decided to invite him back to training or allow him to come back to training. What do you make of it all?
I do think it's come as a shock. I thought that the statement he released before about taking some time away while he focuses on the investigations, I assumed that had been put out by him, but kind of a joint decision between him and the club to look at basically not avoiding a repeat of the Mason Greenwood situation. Yeah. I think that played a huge role in how they were going to handle this, as it should. So then what is it, 2 weeks later for him to come back? I think what's changed in that time? And it suggests to me that initial statement was basically his decision, not United's decision, or certainly more of his decision in there. Because if it was United going, while this is happening, you aren't playing for us, we can't have a repeat of this, whatever, then he wouldn't be back now, because these investigations are only, not getting stronger, but are only in their infancy. There's reports of the sort of, we saw the other day of Antony about to answer questions in England about this. So, there are pieces of this investigation that are planned that haven't even happened yet. So we're certainly nowhere near a conclusion to this. So the idea that he needed some time away, but it was just 2 weeks, maybe that was... I don't quite
just to go through the facts,
yeah, let's go
through factually.
Yeah,
I'm not saying you're not, I'm just putting out. On the 10th, I think the 10th of September, it says... Manchester United and Antony have agreed that the Brazil forward will take time away from the club after allegations of abuse made by 3 women. Now, the statement at the time, United's statement says, Manchester United acknowledges the allegations made against Antony. Players who have not participated in international matches are due back in training on Monday. However, it has been agreed with Antony that he will delay his return until further notice in order to address the allegations. As a club, we condemn acts of violence and abuse. We recognise the importance of safeguarding all those involved in this situation and acknowledge the impact these allegations have on survivors of abuse. I also just want to say, sorry, one more bit, that came on the back of Brazil asking him to leave the squad. They called him into the squad. The international break that's referenced in that statement there, and then following these allegations, they actually asked him to leave the squad. So the statement there, I mean, it says... They'd had a discussion basically between the pair of them, or between the club and the player. They decided. I mean, you're saying you feel like that was more him, sort of his idea, or a mutual thing or whatever. Yeah. I mean, it wasn't really clear there. I think I get where you're coming from. It just sort of says, they've decided rather than they're making him. It's more
because my initial reaction to that was, and this is my opinion, is that was United essentially saying to him, we don't want you around for now.
Yeah, no, I agree with that. Yeah, I think that makes more sense.
That doesn't seem to be the case now, because he's back before any real updates have happened. We've seen in this time that he's done a couple of TV interviews. He's released some statements on social media, sort of always, claiming his innocence. So maybe that was the thing that they wanted to get out of the way, because that seems to be the only real thing that has happened sort of publicly. Again, this is speculation. There could have been tons of things going on in the background. It will be interesting to see where he is mentally with all of this, because regardless of this is no comment on innocence or the case itself, but it is a very difficult thing to go through, whether you're innocent or not. And mentally, I'm sure his head is, let's say distracted, to say the least. You have it sometimes where you're getting a new drive and it's making you stressed, let alone something like this. Yeah. So I wonder how he will be in training, how he will be in games. I would predict that Ten Hag obviously has signed off on this because, I don't imagine him coming back to the squad unless the manager is happy with it. So presumably he'll be playing because the right wing spot is something that, we don't really have a established first team option on that side at the moment. So I expect him to come back and play. But I am slightly surprised because it seemed like we may be seeing him out until the conclusion of the investigation, but clearly that's not the case. Get
involved in the comments in the chat. Let us know what you think. Nicholas Walker says, Man United condemn acts of violence unless we're short of attacking options. Benjamin Hunt, who's a member of the first team and has been for 37 months, says Antony returned to Manchester yesterday and gave his statement yesterday. Maybe United got tipped off that the talk with the police went well. I mean, it's a slightly different one with the Mason Greenwood scenario because Mason Greenwood, there was the audio anyway that went out, that everyone heard that was obviously in the sort of court of public opinion, if you will, made a lot of difference. Plus the police were taking statements from the victim, from Mason Greenwood, and then eventually he was charged.
He was charged.
So that was completely different. I know some people are saying about mentioning Mason Greenwood and how the club have handled it.
Hasn't been charged, has he?
No. To everyone, Brian Casey says, to everyone comparing this to Greenwood, they're both completely different circumstances. The
different circumstances, and also the accusations are very different as well. It's worth remembering that.
There's been a little bit of sort of. There's been changes with this as well, because one of the allegations, there was the lady came through, the girl came forward. I think they retracted one of the allegations that we covered in the news. I think it was last week. But obviously, there's still certain allegations that are out there that he has to face. But what the club have made the decision to invite him back into training. He's not going to be available this weekend, but you'd imagine that he'd be available next week or in the coming weeks. And he's certainly not on a leave of absence anymore. Loads of people, as you'd expect, tweeting about this, comment on it. The Athletic have done an article mentioning the fact that Manchester United forward is returning to training with the club after a leave of absence following accusations he attacked his former partner Gabriella Cavallin as well as two other women. The 23-year-old, who strongly denies the allegations, returned to the UK this week after being allowed to leave Brazil, having been under investigation by Brazilian authorities. Since returning to the UK, he has met with Greater Manchester Police after Cavallin alleged Antony assaulted her on separate occasions between June 2022 and May this year. Two more women came forward in the Brazilian media with accusations against the winger. Antony was removed from the Brazil squad, gave a television interview on September the 8th in his homeland in which he vowed to clear his name. United will say they will keep an eye on the situation. They had previously faced calls to suspend Antony just weeks after the Old Trafford club's internal investigation into Mason Greenwood concluded. The decision over Antony's leave of absence was described as a mutual one, as you just referenced, with the player who said he would fully cooperate with the police to help them reach the truth. Antony received full pay during this period of absence, and at no point was he suspended, so it was different.
Yeah.
He wasn't suspended. Mason Greenwood was suspended, wasn't it? It wasn't a leave of absence. It was, you're suspended while this investigation goes on. With Antony, like you said, it was more mutual, and it was a leave of absence, so he was on full pay. He wasn't suspended. It was, let's have a look what's going on, and then we'll make a decision. And the decision so far has been to bring him back into the fold, and now he's, like we've just said, he is available. Don't expect him to play this weekend. We'll see what happens with that. But Antony back into the squad from a footballing point of view. I mean, we don't know what's going on in this investigation, so I'm a bit loath to start, making ham-fisted suggestions or comments on a case I know nothing about other than what's been put in the media. But from a football point of view, when we are lacking options, I mean, this is a positive one, surely, for Erik Ten Hag in terms of getting a player back that he obviously uses because he bought him.
Yeah, I can see why they've done it, and obviously they have to learn from lessons from other situations, but they aren't the same situation. No. And obviously we're very much at the start of these proceedings, by the sounds of things. So I think, obviously on the pitch, it's one of Ten Hag's sort of go-to guys, isn't he? He bought him in himself. He plays him every week. And in fairness to Antony, I know he gets a lot of stick on just purely playing side, but he works hard, and he may be lacking in product, and he is lacking in product, but he's someone that you can rely on to put a shift in, and I think certainly doesn't make the team worse.
Yeah.
And I think we don't have many other options there. So, I'm sure Ten Hag will be chuffed.
I will say just 2 final things for me. One, the club needs to be right with this. I mean, I presume, and it's a big presumption, they've looked at what they've got in terms of evidence and the statements, and they spoke to the police, and it's like, right, okay, we're in a good enough position to bring him back here, because if they get this one wrong, after what's just gone on with Mason Greenwood, then there's going to be all sorts of backlash. I think you can guarantee that. Yeah. And also, despite the fact that innocent until proven guilty, I do think he's going to get a lot of stick from fans, because not United fans but rival fans, and that's just something he's going to have to cope with. Yeah. Because you know what rival fans are going to be like, the sort of chants. I'm not going to repeat them. You know what you're going to hear, but he's just going to have to be mentally strong and obviously play as well as he can for Manchester United, and it shows that the club believe anyway that he's in a position where they feel comfortable enough to bring him back into the fold.
Yeah, and I think if you look at how these things progress, I think if there were to be charges against him, formal charges, I think we would then probably see a suspension. Yeah. I think that at the minute it is allegations, which is, public obviously, but in terms of a criminal investigation, there hasn't been enough evidence for charges to then be put against him, which I think would then be another, I can't imagine him playing under those circumstances, but as it stands, like you said, they've obviously looked at the evidence, seen where the investigation's up to, and decided we think it's safe for him to play. And I think, hopefully United have got it right.
Hopefully United have got it right. Thanks, Joe. Thanks for everyone who got involved in the chat. We're not going to sort of drag this out. Obviously, I know there's a lot of people who've got a lot to say on it. We will be back later on with the Broom. Obviously, we can talk about them with Stephen Howson. I think you're joining us for that, aren't you?
I believe so.
You're gegging in on that one. Thanks to everyone who has got involved in the chat. And we'll see you later on this afternoon.